When the manager of a luxury dealership orders a black man to leave, convinced he could never afford anything inside. He has no idea the man he's humiliating is actually his new boss. What happens? Next will change the dealership forever. The sun hung low over Atlanta, spilling gold across the hood of every polished car lined up in front of Crestview Luxury Motors. It was the kind of place that prided itself on perfection floor to ceiling. Glass, marble floors, and cars so pristine they seemed carved out of dreams. Inside, the air smelled faintly of leather, fresh coffee, and money. Miles Donovan pulled into the farthest corner of the lot in a modest black Honda Accord. No one would have guessed it was worth barely a fraction of the cheapest vehicle in the showroom. He stepped out, dressed in a plain charcoal hoodie, jeans, and worn sneakers. A baseball cap shadowed his face. There was nothing about him that screamed millionaire or business owner. And that was exactly the point. 3 weeks earlier, Miles had quietly purchased Crestview Motors through a holding company. The ink was still drying on the contracts. The staff didn't know yet, not even the manager who ran the day-to-day operations. Miles wanted to see how they treated people when they didn't know who they were dealing with. He took a slow breath and headed toward the dealership entrance, his reflection gliding over the showroom glass. Inside, a man in a perfectly tailored suit and red tie leaned against a desk, chatting with a woman in pencil skirt and heels. Both glanced his way when he pushed the door open. The man's smile faltered almost instantly. "Can I help you?" The voice was clipped, professional on the surface, but laced with the faintest note of suspicion. Miles smiled politely. "Just looking around," the man stepped forward. "We usually work by appointment for serious buyers." His eyes flicked over Miles's hoodie, sneakers, and jeans. "Our vehicles start at, well, let's just say, they're not exactly casual purchases." Miles's smile didn't waver. "That's fine, I'll just browse." The man didn't move. "Name's Greg Talbot, I'm the general manager here." He said it like it was meant to intimidate, like his title was a gatekeeper to the showroom. "What exactly are you looking for today?" "Something more affordable." There it was, the assumption. Miles had dealt with it all his life. "Not sure yet," Miles said, his tone calm. "What would you recommend for someone like me?" Greg's smile thinned. "Honestly, I'd recommend checking out our pre-owned lot down the road. We don't keep starter vehicles here. This is Crestview. Our clients know what they're coming for." Miles walked a slow circle around a pearl-white Bentley Continental parked in the center of the room. The paint gleamed like it had its own light source. He trailed a hand along the edge of the driver's door. "Please don't touch the vehicles unless you're accompanied by a sales associate," Greg said sharply. His voice had lost all pretense of friendliness. Miles pulled his hand back, studying the car a moment longer. "Beautiful machine," he murmured. "You sell a lot of these?" Greg gave a small laugh. "Not to just anyone." From the far corner of the showroom, another salesman, mid-20s, crisp navy suit, stepped forward. "Hey Greg, the finance rep is online too." Greg didn't move his eyes from Miles. "Tell them I'll call back. I need to make sure our visitors are taken care of." Visitors, not customers. Miles could feel the eyes on him now, not just Greg's, but the receptionists, and even the woman in the pencil skirt, who had stopped pretending to work. "Look," Greg said finally, "I don't want to waste your time. This isn't the place for test drives unless you're a qualified buyer. I can recommend somewhere." Miles's voice stayed even. "Why don't you call the owner? I'd like to speak with them." Greg's brow arched. "The owner?" He gave a low chuckle. "Trust me, they don't have time to come down here just to talk. And frankly, they expect me to keep distractions off their floor." "Distractions," Miles repeated softly. Greg nodded, clearly believing he'd made his point. "So why don't we walk you out, and I can give you the address of our sister dealership. More in your range." There was a moment of silence between them. heavy enough to make even the receptionist look away. Miles slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. "All right," he said. "I'll call them myself." Greg gave a small laugh. "You have the owner's number?" Miles lifted the phone to his ear. "Hey, it's me." "Yeah, I'm at Crestview. Could you swing by? We've got a little situation." He listened for a moment, then nodded. "Great, see you in a few." He hung up and slipped the phone back into his hoodie pocket. Greg's smile faltered. "Who did you just call?" "You'll see," Miles said, his tone calm as stone. The next 5 minutes dragged like hours. The low hum of the showrooms. Air conditioning was the only sound. Greg paced. The receptionist kept stealing glances. Miles stood quietly by a black Lamborghini, his reflection sharp in its flawless paint. The glass doors finally opened. A man in a dark blue suit strode in tall, confident, the kind of person who made the air change when they entered a room. Greg straightened immediately. "Mr. Ashford." The suited man ignored him and headed straight for Miles. His face broke into a smile. "Mr. Donovan," he said warmly, shaking Miles's hand. "Apologies for keeping you waiting." Greg froze. His eyes darted between them. "Wait, you two know each other?" Mr. Ashford turned to Greg, his smile gone. "Greg, meet Miles Donovan, the new owner of Crestview Motors." The color drained from Greg's face. "You," his voice cracked slightly. "You own?" "Yes," Miles said evenly. "Bought it 3 weeks ago," Greg stammered. I didn't know." "That much is obvious," Miles said, his tone still calm. But every word razor-sharp. The showroom was dead silent now. Even the faint clicking of the receptionist's keyboard had stopped. Miles stepped closer, his voice low enough that only Greg and the few employees straining to listen could hear. "Tell me something, Greg. If I weren't the owner, if I were just some guy in a hoodie who wanted to buy a car, would you have treated me the same as the man who walks in wearing a Rolex in the 3-piece suit?" Greg's mouth opened, but nothing came out. "That's what I thought," Miles said. He turned to Mr. Ashford. "Gather the staff in the conference room, now." The glass-walled conference room was meant to impress, but today it felt like a courtroom. Miles stood at the head of the table. Greg sat near the middle, shoulders tense, hands clasped in his lap. "Most of you don't know me," Miles began, voice steady. "My name is Miles Donovan. I'm the new owner of Crestview Motors. And I came here today looking like this." He gestured to his hoodie and jeans. "Because I wanted to see how you treat people when you don't know who they are." His gaze swept the table. What I found was disappointing. A ripple of unease moved through the room. This dealership sells some of the finest cars in the state. But that means nothing if the people inside judge customers by what they wear, what they drive, or what they look like. You think you can tell who's worth your time? You can't, and if you try, you'll lose business. And worse, you'll lose your integrity. Miles let the silence hang before continuing. "I don't care if someone walks in wearing a $5,000 suit or sweatpants from Walmart. If they're here, they get respect. They get our best. That's the standard from today forward." He looked directly at Greg. "You're the manager. That means you set the tone." Today, the tone was wrong. Greg swallowed hard. I understand. Do you?" Miles asked quietly. "Because here's the thing, you nearly kicked out your boss without even finding out who he was. What does that tell me about how you treat everyone else?" Greg's face flushed. "I made a mistake. I misjudged you," Miles nodded. "And I'm not here to humiliate you, but mistakes have consequences. We're going to have a serious talk about your role here. In the meantime, every single employee will go through customer experience training, mandatory. No exceptions." He turned back to the group. "If anyone here thinks they can't treat every customer with equal respect, this is your chance to walk away." No one moved. "Good," Miles said. "Because Crestview's reputation starts now." And it's going to be built on more than just selling expensive cars. It's going to be built on trust. As the meeting ended, people filed out in uneasy silence. Greg lingered. "Mr. Donovan Miles, I'm truly sorry." I'll do better." Miles studied him for a moment. "I hope so. Because here, actions speak louder than words." Miles stepped back into the showroom. The cars gleamed under the lights, their reflections as sharp as his resolve. Running. A dealership wasn't just about profit margins or sales targets. It was about creating a place where everyone felt welcome the moment they walked through the door. And from this day forward, that's exactly what Crestview would be.